Alright, real quick, I've got the bottom four drawings of the drawings I covered in video 1. However, I did not start this project. I procrastinated a little bit, and luckily that paid off in my favor because we did a couple changes. First, we extended the bed in just lengthwise, just a little bit, just to give some more play. We increased the height of this just a little bit, and we also, right here. The legs stopped in the original one. They're going a little taller in this one. But anyway, I've kept the original 3 up on the cabinet so I can reference back to them because they've got the pieces labeled out as what I need. It's not going to change much, so I'm going to ballpark with them. And then I've got the new ones up on top, which those are the ones that I will include in the link below. And they're the ones that are going to be used for this project. So this is a good time for me to test out my new miter saw stand. I'm primarily going to be using 2x10s because that's what I've got the most of on hand, and then I'll just buy the rest. But right now I've got a 16-foot 2x10 outside, and I want to test this miter saw station out, so that's what I'm going to do first. So it worked out well. It's not handling the weight awesomely, but I think that's more of the way I mounted it than anything. But you know, it does the job. I'm not going to be doing these bigger cuts all that often, so it works. Well, the saw station is working well. I put a 16-foot piece on there, 16-foot 2x10. This side just dipped down a little bit, but I think it's due to that joint right there. That can be fixed later. Anyway, 16-foot 2x10 worked out great. I cut off 83 3/4 because I'm working on the bed frame right now. I did that twice, so these two pieces are my 83 3/4 and scrap. I'm going to leave the scraps all in one location because I'm going to start cutting them up as I go, as I need. And I'm going to rip these down into a 2x6 size, which is 5.5, which will leave me just about 3.5 remaining, which is a 2x4. So then I can use that on the later parts of the build. But these are 83 3/4, like I said. So I'm going to rip them down. And right at the back of the blade is 7 feet, 84 inches. So luckily I'm right at the window. I don't have to open the window, but if I did, this is the setup where I can just push the window open and push the material right out the window. So this works. So I've got most of my stock cut for the frame. This is just a cut off from a 16-footer that I'm yet to cut up. And then I've got these two pieces, which are the long side of the frame rails, and these are the short side of the frame rails. On these short sides, I've got to drill 3 pocket hole screws. 3 pocket holes on either side. 3 in here, 3 in here, 3 in there, 3 in there. And that's how I'm going to join the frame together. Once I get the frame completely squared in, then I'm going to put the sub rails down in the bottom. It's just going to be 1.5 by 1.5 by however long my interior dimension is, and so we'll start cutting the slats. With my Kreg jig set up on the bench, and I'm about to drill the pocket hole screws, or pocket holes, in the short rails of the frame. You can see just how close I am to having to do this on the floor. So 3 inches just saved my back from hurting a little bit more. Because my shop is so small and this project is so big, from here on out it's going to be a matter of rearranging with every step. These are my short rails for the frame, and I'm going to screw them into the long rails. Typically you'd want to put your good side out, but in this instance I put my bad side out because with this all on the same plane, it's going to be a lot easier to smooth this side, sand and smooth in this side than it will be if it was on the inside. You got to contend with rails down here in the future and all that nonsense. Well, the simple solution would be to sand right now, but I don't want to break out the sander and get all the sawdust floating around in the air for the remainder of the project, so I think it's just going to be easier for me to sand at the end. That's what I've done previously, and it works for me, so that's the route I'm going. I'm going to get these screwed together, and then we'll start on the inner sub rail. Alright, that side's going to be the footboard side, and this side over here is going to be the headboard side. I goofed up a little bit. I just went ahead and screwed this in right at the end. I recently built 4 bunk beds, and just kind of out of habit, this design is a little bit different. I've got to start this piece 5 1/4 inches away from this edge. So this next 2x6 is going to be right here. And the reason being is because below there's going to be shelves like so, and luckily these will be concealed. You won't be able to see them, so there'll be another shelf above this, and the bottom you'll have a shelf down here, so you really have to look in and up to see those holes. My mistake, won't be noticeable. So 5 1/4 inches from the end for this particular project. The frame is put together and the shop is starting to get tight. Now on the insides of the long rails at the bottom, I'm going to put a 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch sub rail to go all the way down, and that's what's going to hold the slats in place. To do so, I'll normally just rip down a 2x4, but I've got some of these 3.5 inch scrap left over from when I originally cut my 2x10s, and they are very close to the final length, so I'm just going to rip them down 1.5 inches, and then cut them to the final length. And this is my sub rail. I'm not measuring and cutting, I'm just pushing up where it needs to be, marking, and then cutting. So much of this build is just measuring and marking where stuff lines up. So I'm going to get these 2 cut and then just screw them in place. With your sub rails cut, we can just simply set them in place and screw them into the main rail however you please. I'm just using some 2.5 inch coated decking screws simply because that's what I have on hand. I've got some 2x4x10s to use as my slats to go in here. I'm going to cut them off at 54 inches so I can get two slats per 2x4x10, and so 6 of these will be for the slats, and I picked up an extra couple. I think that's going to be for the legs, the ladder on the footboard. But there's going to be 11 slats, and the very center one is where I'm going to start. I'm going to screw that one in place, and the rest are just going to be floating, and they will be spaced out every 3.5 inches.